Welcome back. Are we seeing a resurgence in anti-Semitism? The Anti-Defamation League keeps track of incidents of harassment, vandalism, and assaults against the Jewish community. In 2015, there were 91 incidents in Florida, up from 70 the year before. Only 3 states had more incidents than Florida. Earlier today, separate bomb threats were made to Jewish centers in Jacksonville and Miami. At a November conference, Jonathan Greenblatt, of the National Director of the Anti-Defamation League, said anti-Jewish hatred in America is worse than at any point in the 1930s. Joining us for more on this issue is Rabbi Emeritus Jeffrey Hunting of Temple Sinai, Howard Tevlowitz, the Executive Director of the Jewish Federation of Sarasota and Manatee, and Reverend Tom Pfaff of the Sarasota Ministerial Association. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us tonight. This is really disturbing. At the outset, I'll tell everyone, I think you two guys are not going to agree on a lot of parts of this conversation, but it really is no joke. I mean, just today, one day, the Jewish Federation of North America reports that there were 15 to 19 bomb threats around the country. I don't know if I've ever seen anything like this in my lifetime. And the obvious question is why now? And Howard, I know that's a complicated question, but give it a shot.
Yeah, look, from my perspective, this has been going on unabated for years. And we're watching this combination of left anti-Semitism from the left and now anti-Semitism from the right kind of coming to the forefront. And it's been unchecked for a long time, and now it's time to call it out.
All right, well, let's take it one by one, because during the presidential campaign, there was criticism of Breitbart for some of their writers and reporters making it very easy or making anti-Semitic statements. There were accusations against Steve Bannon, who is President-elect Trump's senior advisor. I mean, is there merit to that, Rabbi?
Yes, there is. Of course there is. But we're talking about really a populist movement in the United States and elsewhere. It's not just here. It's happening in Europe as well. And with populism comes a need for singling out the other, whoever that is. And with our case, obviously, anti-Semitism is always right first in line when people try to single another community out. But we're not alone. This has also happened to the LGBT community. It's also happened to the Muslim community and others. So this is generally part of the atmosphere. And I'm not saying that the president-elect, wanted this to happen. I don't believe he did. But he certainly benefited from a burgeoning problem.
The pushback on that is, look, President-elect Trump's daughter is an Orthodox Jew. His son-in-law is an Orthodox Jew, so why would he unwittingly or allow this to happen?
Very simple to get elected. I think he's not an anti-Semite. I don't think anybody would accuse him of that. I certainly wouldn't. But I think with this movement, there was a lot of power behind this populist thing, and he let it happen. I'm just hoping that once he gets into office, he will step up, and he has, incidentally, denouncing it. So let's just hope so.
Reverend, do you agree or disagree?
Well, first I want to say the faith community, the Christian faith community, is 100% behind all of our Jewish community. And I do agree that I think that not only has anti-Semitism grown, but so has bigotry in general.
And Howard, your main issue or big issue is the fact that when we're talking about the left, we're talking about what happens on our college campuses, not only in the Sarasota area, but at USF, at UCF, at Florida State,
Correct.
At some of the Ivies.
I think it's been going on unchecked for years. And let's put this in perspective. Jews have been terrorized in the Middle East, in Europe, and now terrorism, whether it's a personal attack or it's a verbal attack, has been going on unchecked here for years. So welcome to the world. We've laid this thing out, and now it's happening here.
Why this intense spike right now?
I think it is a combination of what Rabbi Hunting talked about, which is a little bit of freedom from the right, and it's also feeling an unabated ability to say what you want to say. In this, unfortunately, world where we don't speak out against bad behavior and bad language, things happen. And we've been watching it going on for years, and no one said anything. Now we're getting it from the right.
All right, we're going to talk about this more. We were just getting started. We'll have more on our discussion on anti-Semitism, plus a check on your forecast after this break. Welcome back. If you're just joining us, we are discussing anti-Semitism in Florida and here on the Suncoast. Our guests tonight are Rabbi Jeffrey Hunting of Temple Sinai, Howard Teflowitz of the Jewish Federation of Sarasota at Manatee, and Reverend Tom Pfaff of the Sarasota Ministerial Association. Reverend, you were saying, during the break that, we talked about some of the things that happened with Breitbart and what's happening on the right. But the Democrats, there were, during this campaign, issues came up that
the
are
anti-Semitic
disturbing.
statements about Bernie Sanders. And so
Specifically, what are you talking about?
I think that WikiLeaks, as we all know, has released information that shared direct comments that were made by the leadership of the Democratic Committee to heighten Bernie's not looking as good as Hillary. And so I was only sharing that so that we could cover both sides of the coin.
Essentially, they were questioning whether he is really a practicing Jew. And is that anti-Semitic or just bad?
I think they were pointing out that he is Jewish.
Okay. The other issue is, and we started talking about this, is what's happening on the college campuses. And Howard, I know that this is, you take this very seriously, but my question to you, because our college campuses have always been a bed of protests from the Vietnam War and so forth. And the question is whether some of the anti-Israeli sentiment expressed on our college campuses, is that a political discussion? Because people do have honest differences of opinion about what Israel does and does not do.
Definitely. People are entitled to not like the Israeli government, Netanyahu. They're entitled not to like our government or President Obama or President-elect Trump. They're entitled not to. It's when the speech goes beyond disliking a country to defaming a people. Again, you can be anti-Israel and not be anti-Semitic, but when the language goes from being anti-Israel to that of questioning Zionism, to speaking pejoratively against Jews, of calling people dirty Jews, kikes, that kind of thing, which is going on throughout this country in campuses, that's completely unacceptable. But again, because of freedom of speech on college campuses, that seems to be okay these days. And we're seeing some spikes in this country of Jewish students being abused verbally and physically on campuses.
Rabbi, even if you just take the issue of Zionism, just because you don't agree with Zionism or the state of Israel, does that in and of itself make you anti-Semitic?
No, of course not. I think there are people who disagree that we have a Jewish state in the Middle East. Obviously, this is very upsetting to me and to everybody I know. But you can be opposed to that concept at the same time as not being an anti-Semite. However, let me say something. When you are out to destroy a whole country and to take it away, to me, the difference is so minuscule that I don't even think we should talk about it. I think some aspects of Zionism, even that debate is going on in Israel right now. The Israelis are debating that. And I think also it's important not to have some false equivalency here. Not to defend at all the offensive statements by an aide, I believe it was, who came out through John Podesta in the Democratic Party. It's very, very different from what we're talking about with 15 JCCs being, in Jewish institutions. And I think it's very important also to know that we shouldn't underestimate it. Howard's absolutely right. We shouldn't overestimate it either. We should, in other words, be very, very aware. This is not 1938, thank God.
But you still, Howard, you pointed out there is a rally taking place, I believe, in Montana.
Monday.
White supremacists.
And neo-Nazis.
In small measure, this has taken place for many years, but why do you think it's different now?
I wish I had a crystal ball to be able to look to see why now. I think a lot of people are looking to blame and potentially the incoming president, looking to blame. I think the blame has been on putting up with this behavior for years and not stopping it. And it's emboldened people to be able to feel comfortable to say what they want to say when they want to say it. I think this has been a phenomenon that's been going on for years, unabated.
Reverend, do you blame our recent political campaign in terms of people being more willing to say things that they would never say before?
I wouldn't blame them, but as someone who was muzzled in seminary with political correctness, it's been almost a delight this last year to be able to speak freely. And I think if you take that to the extreme, which is what we're talking about on the right, that can be very dangerous.
So the question becomes, what do we do about this? I mean, we live in troubled times. You know, we're not just talking about problems here at home, but this is what's happening in Europe is very concerning. You know, is there an answer? Is there things that we should be doing in our community, whether you're Jewish or Christian or Muslim? What is not happening within our own community now that you all wish were happening?
Well, I think it'll be a response, don't you think? I think we've already had a wonderful positive response. This has been a shock to everybody, not just to the Jewish community, as to what's happened here. And sometimes we have to be woken up to realize that there's a problem. If you're saying here as opposed to Europe, remember David Dukes would be in jail in France and Germany right now because they have anti-hate speech laws. I have to take a little bit of issue with my friend over here, Tom. The use of the word political correctness, I think, is overused. It was originally for hiring people in universities to making sure there was enough women and minorities. And in a certain sense, it also means by being sensitive to people and not having the freedom to offend them. That's usually, often political correctness is used to really defend against that. As a victim
of political correctness, it's kind of hard to win an argument when only one side can talk. And when I'm called a racist, I'm immediately taken out of the argument. If I'm called an anti-Semite, I'm immediately taken out of the argument. And so saying no to that language, which is what our brother Howard is saying, is what I'm saying, to let me speak freely and not be tagged or labeled that quickly.
I think it's one thing, and incidentally in the United States, you can always say anything you want to. I mean, we have a First Amendment right in the United States to do that. Whether that's a good thing to do, like calling you
legally, not in reality.
Well, it really, for one, when we do speak out, there are consequences, but it doesn't prevent us from speaking out. Even Nazis could march in Skokie, Illinois. There are many of us who are upset about that.
I think part of the issue is the speaking out issue, because again, the action, the verbal becomes an action, and that's where the problems are coming in, where the unabated speech, and by the way, in Europe, someone like me, what I do for a living, would have to go underground. I cannot be in public in Europe.
We have less than a minute, but one quick question. Why so much in Florida? We're leading the nation. Is it the size of the state, or is there something else?
Yeah. It's a diversity of the state that's unfortunate.
Yeah. I think California is also very far up there as well. There's a lot of people there. And these militia groups have been very active in this state. And that's one of them, one of the sources of anti-Semitism here.
Okay, let's take another quick break. But when we return, we'll have final thoughts from our guests, plus what some of our viewers are saying about local responses to the mass shooting at the Fort Lauderdale Airport. Welcome back. Is anti-Semitism an issue here on the Suncoast, and what can be done to combat it? Our guests join us now for final thoughts. Before we get to that, you know, this might surprise some people that we're having this issue right now, because since 9/11, most of the concern about civil liberties has dealt with blowback on the Muslim community.
That's correct.
I mean, do you agree with that, Rabbi? Or I mean, that we have to be just as concerned about that?
Yes, I think so. But I think the anti-Muslim community, I could be very, very wrong, but I think it's coming from specific, I think, understandable fears of the Muslim world. I mean, we've been subject to, in both in Europe and the United States, of terrorism. Of course, people are going to feel that way. And but a lot of innocent people are feeling under pressure because of that. Anti-Semitism is much older than that, and this is why it's more disturbing to us.
And Howard, you've been very busy in terms of talking to law enforcement.
Correct.
And what are you doing right now in terms of not only protecting the Federation, but also synagogues around here?
We're going to be working with a national enforcement group that works with Jewish federations around the country. And we will be inviting synagogues, Jewish agencies, Jewish organizations in to talk about protecting ourselves. It's a new world today.
I know at my synagogue there is a sheriff's deputy always out front when on
I think
Shabbat
the new
and on the holidays.
Yeah, this is the new normal. You know, what we saw in, what we're seeing in Europe, we're seeing here. And we better protect ourselves and watch ourselves.
Reverend, I'll give you the last word.
I would like us all to love unconditionally and to live accountably.
Unfortunately, we don't always do that. And, you know, obviously what we're talking about today seems like evidence of that. You know, there was the head of the ADL said today, make no mistake, these are terrorist acts intended to intimidate and disrupt the everyday lives of Jewish members of the community.
That's 100% correct. Right there. It's 100% correct.
All right. We'll have to leave it there. But before we go, we want to share what some of our viewers are saying about security measures being taken at Sarasota-Bradenton International Airport. In the wake of the mass shooting in Fort Lauderdale, SRQ Airport is going on high alert, equipping police officers with heavy body armor and long guns. There are no threats at this time, but officials are not taking any chances. And here's what some of you are saying. Max Walters writes, you're more likely to get hit by lightning or killed at a 7-Eleven. We have like 4 murders a day, but one random dude snaps and the world shuts down. This is a test, and we are failing. Live your lives. John Brunowski writes, wait until someone you care about dies like this. Are you willing to suppress your own emotion for the greater good? You should be a politician. Julia Donovan Collins writes, hey, I would rather have them be safe than sorry. I doubt seriously that the families in Fort Lauderdale share the crass sentiment shown here. And Melvin Wilson writes, people need to get out of that mindset that because an airport is small, nothing will happen. As far as the officers being prepared, they have training which keeps them prepared at all times. We need to just accept that the fact that the world is screwed up now, and it could happen anywhere. Well, if you'd like to join the conversation about tonight's topic, just visit our Facebook page at facebook.com/news@7. And FYI, want to watch our past roundtable discussions? They're available on Apple TV, Amazon Fire, and Roku. Thanks to our guests for being here tonight. Rabbi Emeritus Jeffrey Hunting of Temple Sinai, Howard Tevlowitz of the Jewish Federation of Sarasota Manatee, and Reverend Tom Pfaff of the Sarasota Ministerial Association.